Okay, we've been sent another plan today to evaluate a future implant bridge. This particular patient will be losing tooth number 29 according to the notes that were sent in. Tooth number 28 needs to be extracted, broken to the gum line, missing tooth number 30, and would like an implant bridge that extends from implant site 28 to implant site number 30 with a 3-unit bridge connected. So again, my first area of evaluation is the CEREC data. The CEREC data in this particular situation looks very nice. The only area that I would possibly critique in this area, in this particular plan, would be, excuse me, I apologize for yawning, gingival margin here. So I'd like to go ahead and draw this just a bit higher than where it's drawn down here. So not that big of a deal. So there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the plans itself. Let's start with site number 28. It's an immediate placement. My concern, I got a couple of concerns on this particular plan. One is immediate placement does require stability. So based on this particular plan right now as we see it, we have the room to do some apical extension. So right now as we see it, our tooth is right there, but our implant does not have any area where it extends into the bone either apically or mesiodistally. So I have some concerns about whether or not we'll have stability with this particular implant. So I would probably encourage us to look at a slightly wider and maybe even longer implant to gain stability, and even then again it'll still be questionable whether or not we have the stability. An alternative in this particular case would be to place the implant at a slightly different angle and then go ahead and bring it back into we need to make sure that we get stability here. So I have a concern about that, if that's possible. The only other concern also I have is the location of the buccal plate. It's possible that the buccal plate ends right here, goes something like this, so that implant may need to be buried a little bit deeper. That would be a situation where I would plan it deeper, and then as I'm driving the implant in, based on the bone location, I may back it out or drive it all the way down. So that should pretty much cover that. Now when we go to site number 30, my concern with site number 30 is I don't like personally to place these implants this deep. I know why this was done, to avoid having to graft this area where we have some bone loss, but the negative in placing the implant this deep is going to be what happens to this bone right here and how that affects the adjacent teeth, or in this case the adjacent tooth is going to be lost, but still the posterior tooth. So my preference in cases like this is to place the implant relatively ideal, something like that, and then go ahead and graft that area. In this case I'd go ahead and go to at least a 10mm implant, and that should take care of that. Now the only other thing that I would mention in this particular situation here is looking at a long-term perspective here. I would like to be able to do this as a screw retained bridge. To do that, I would just simply parallel number 30 to number 28, make sure that works within my occlusal table, and it somewhat does. If that doesn't work, Control Z and then go to number 28 and parallel that to number 30 and see how that works, and that actually works much better. So now we could do a screw retained bridge with a fully guided system where you have a guided osteotomy and a guided implant placement. I could certainly do this and predictably know I'm going to do a screw retained bridge, and the economics of something like that would be tremendous savings for you and the patient. Thank you for submitting the case. Hopefully it was helpful.